Hi and welcome to Earthtide Studios. I'm Zach Knight, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about a pretty subjective topic: what makes a good vocal? So a lot of the time people will have a very different opinion about what a good vocal is, what it sounds like, what its intention is, and how it's been delivered. I'm going to break down a few key concepts that you as a producer or a songwriter or an artist can think of when it comes to getting a good vocal in the studio. I'd also like to let you know we have a free vocal production course that'll teach you the basics of recording, editing, and mixing your vocals. If you want that, that's available from the link below. But for now, let's start talking about what makes a good vocal. Getting a good vocal is really about delivering on the intention that the vocalist is after. So if the artist is after a vocal that is beautiful and pure and powerful, then you're really looking for real clarity of note, clarity of tone, sincerity in the vocal, sincerity in the performance. You don't want any sort of weakness and brittleness coming out in the vocal if they're looking for that kind of style of tone. It's really important to understand what the story is the vocalist is trying to deliver. What's the story? What's the message behind the song, behind that lyric that they are singing to you there? It's really important that you actually grab those pieces of information before you get started going in there and tracking vocals, or at least do your best to understand it as you're going. On the other hand, if you're after a more looser, dirtier kind of vocal, then it's important that you let the artist have a chance to explore those different styles when they're behind the mic. Don't be so focused on making sure that the pitch is super perfect. It's more about the tone and the expression and the emotion that's been put into the performance. Obviously, that's really important when you're doing a more powerful performance as well, but depending upon what you're after, you might be shooting to be focusing more off of the note, or you might be shooting to focus more on the emotion or the brittleness of the vocal. It really depends upon what the artist is desiring with their song. It's also really important that you understand how the artist wants to display emotion in their vocal. Take anger, for instance. There's many different ways that anger can be portrayed in a vocal. Not everything is all about aggression. Sure, you could have the vocalist come in and they have a powerful, aggressive song. They want to use a little bit of vocal distortion or even full-on aggressive vocals to really display the emotion that they're putting in that song. But they could also be wanting to display subtle anger, subtle angst in respect to the song and the story that they're delivering. Maybe they want to be a little bit cheeky with it. Maybe they want to be a little bit more, subtle and a bit sultry with the way that they're displaying that anger. It's just really down to understanding what tone they are trying to deliver and harnessing that in the best way possible. It could even be that, you have a particular way that you talk to the artist depending upon what emotion that they're using. Try and play up on that emotion in the way that you're using the inflections in your voice. When you're telling them, say, hey, can you do another take? Make it sassy, just give them that fuel to keep that emotion going until they nail the take and they feel that satisfaction that they've done something fantastic. On the other hand, delivery is really down to the vocalist, and it's your job as a producer to try and coax the best delivery out of them. There's many different techniques that you can use to achieve this, but it's really important that you play to the strengths of the artist. Don't try and push them too far outside of their comfort zone. Certainly, it's good to try and experiment things, maybe see if you can stretch where an artist can go within their vocal range, or their tone, or the style of vocal that they're doing. But it's also really smart to make sure that you do something that is consistent with what the vocalist is trying to do and is capable of doing. There's nothing worse than having the vocalist push to do all of these crazy things in the studio, and then there's no way for them to be able to replicate it live. It's definitely very disappointing for a lot of artists when they come into the studio, they do all of these fancy things, and then they think, well, I'm never going to be able to pull this off live, so we're just going to have to chuck it in the backing tracks. It's no fun if you go through that process. Certainly, there's a lot of really cool stuff and different styles and layers that you can do in a studio, which can be for studio only. But the main vocal, the main delivery, you want to be making sure that that's something that vocalists can do. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want to push them to get the absolute best performance, but you've got to remember that essentially when the vocalist comes into the studio, they're coming in with a tank of fuel. and this is how much vocal stamina and vocal ability they have for the day. And they come in and they walk in and they might have 100% of what they're able to do. They might walk in and they might have 65% of what they're able to do. It all depends on physically how fit they are, how much sleep they have had, how hydrated they are, whether or not they've been unwell recently, how much practice they've done. All of these are important factors. So it's good for you to sort of have a little bit of a conversation with the vocalist before they come into the studio. Try and see whether or not you can actually do some pre-production with them beforehand, gauge how they perform, see whether or not they're the kind of vocalist who walks in and the first hour is their best and that's what you've got to aim for, or do they need like an hour and a half to warm up and really get into their stride, and everything else before then you're probably going to throw away. It's important to keep that, those earlier takes just in case you end up needing to use them for backing vocals or something, but it's also really important to make sure that you understand where the vocalist is when they hit their stride, what their best takes sound like. Now, you can't always have a perfect situation, and often you don't. You might have no idea what the best performance you're going to be able to get of a vocalist would be, and you might just have to be totally winging it. And that's okay. It's more ideal that you have a chance to have a bit of a conversation with the vocalist, maybe even understand what kind of warm-ups do they do, how often do they warm up before they do singing practice, did they warm up before they came to the studio? Certainly if they didn't, make them go and warm up. It might be that they only need to take 10 minutes, it might mean that they need half an hour. If they need longer than half an hour for vocal warm-ups, then unless there's somebody that you know has a lot of specialized techniques, you might want to be checking on them because you don't want to be wearing out their voice before they're using it. These are all important factors that you need to consider when it comes to getting the vocalist to deliver in the studio. Not everyone's going to be able to come in and know what they're doing, and a lot of people don't. They might be in the studio for the first time. It's your job to try and help them get the best performance that they can. And just remember, vocals is a really, really personal thing, but it is art. It is creativity. So there's a way to do things, and then there's a way to do things to make sure that you get something really great out of the artist and they walk away feeling very satisfied. That's the goal. At the end of the day, when someone's coming into the studio with you, they are the artist, you're not the artist. You're the producer. So let them make the final decisions. Even if you disagree with them, it's important to let the artist know they have final say in how their voice is going to sound. If you are making the decision over them, then you're going to find that a lot of artists are not going to potentially want to come back and work with you again. It's a reality. People don't like to be told what to do. It's important to build up that relationship so that you can help, lend an ear and also make good suggestions on what they can do with their voice. Help them create a really, really great tone, great stamina, and, great expression, really good stories with their songs. But just remember, they are the artists, so let them have the final say on what they're going to do with their vocals. They'll thank you for it later, and who knows, they may come back to do another song with you. So there you go, just a little bit of a quick discussion on some of the point of views I have on how to create a great vocal. Obviously, these are just my opinions, and I know that there's a lot to unpack regarding this video, and a lot of you might disagree with me. That's totally okay. As I said, this is just one way of going about getting a good vocal. If you like what you heard and you want to learn more, don't forget we have that free vocal production course, and if you'd like to subscribe, and if you've got any more suggestions for any of these kind of videos, please just let me know in the comments. Otherwise, take it easy.